Manisha Mathur and welcome to Shades of Shakti, a celebration of South Asian women. Yes, we celebrate the lives of truly inspirational South Asian women who have blazed trails, pushed past challenges, and shattered ceilings of glass. These women widen the scope of dreams and prove to be true role models. The role of an astronaut is both a mentally and physically challenging one that requires a great many hours spent in space under intense conditions. Astronauts must be highly trained to venture into space, and the job is a grueling yet incredibly inspiring one like no other. Almost everyone has a question or two about living in space. From eating to sleeping to staying fit, even mundane tasks aren't without hair-raising challenges. What is it like going on a spacewalk? Some astronauts have said there's no words to describe this experience. Well, today we hope to answer some of your space questions from someone who's been there firsthand, as we bring you part 2 of our exclusive chat with astronaut Suni Williams. She holds the record for the longest spacewalk by a woman, and we're in the middle of all the action at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, with a true shade of Shakti, astronaut Suni Williams. As we push the boundaries of exploration further and further, the technology, equipment, and techniques required in space more and more are becoming complex and interesting. It can take nearly 3 hours to dress for a spacewalk.
I got you loud and clear. How do you hear us?
Tell us what a spacewalk is like.
I think it's probably the most incredible thing you can do in space because you're in your own spacecraft. Essentially, the spacesuit is its own thing. It has its own, like I said, heating and cooling, its own oxygen system, own carbon dioxide removal. And so you are in it alone outside. Of course, we have a tether, which is like a fishing reel tether that holds us to a part of the space station while we are translating and moving around on the space station. So we're not free floating out there. However, it has human factors involved in it, the fishing line, so it could get disconnected if you weren't careful. As a result of that, we have a backpack, a jetpack on the back of the spacesuit, which you could fly yourself back to the space station. And luckily, knock on wood, nobody's had to do that. We've tested it while we were inside the payload bay of the space shuttle, but we haven't had to use it while we're out on the space station. The space station is like a soccer field. It's pretty huge, and so we have people all over, when they're out doing spacewalks 2 at a time. They can go to any part of the space station to do any type of repairs or additions or whatever we're doing, and so you want to be connected all the time. And one of the most incredible things you can do in a spacesuit is look in any direction. Here in the space station itself, we have windows, but they generally look down, so you're looking down at the planet or maybe out to the side a little bit. You can see the edge of the planet into space. In the spacesuit, it's you in this helmet, and so you can hold on to one part of the space station with a hand, and you can turn around and look whichever direction you want. You could look out into the vastness of space. You could look down toward Earth. You could look anywhere you want. You could be on top of the space station looking down at the space station and the Earth below it. You can be on one end of the space station, on like the ends by the solar array, and looking back all the way toward the whole football field of the space station and seeing the curvature of the Earth behind it. And so your view is up to you, and I think that's one of the most incredible things. Now, I will say it's also dangerous, but when we're out there, you have a task to do, and so most everybody's, obviously very serious, and they're doing their task.
Just in case a tether breaks, astronauts also carry a system called SAFER on their spacesuits. This system uses small jet thrusters that astronauts can control with a joystick to maneuver around in space and make their way back towards a spacecraft if necessary.
On the space station, it's huge, it's very complicated. So every now and then we do have false alarms as well as real alarms where maybe some electrical box is not working quite right, a circuit breaker pops or something, and it might be on a really big box that's outside on the space station. And we had a couple of those on both flights. Some false alarms that we have a fire detector that went off, and so it wakes you up in the middle of the night and you just have to get up out of your sleep station and gather together and assess whether or not this is real or not. So it makes your heart beat a little bit. We also had some real circuit breaker pops, as you might want to call it, but outside of the space station where some upstream power box didn't work, which then took down all sorts of electrical power inside of the space station, and then have to figure out how to work that. And one thing the space station could do is could go into loss of attitude control, where it's tumbling a little bit. But it's still flying. You know, it's still orbiting the Earth. It's not going to stop orbiting the Earth. It just changes its attitude a little bit.
So you all are tumbling inside?
Well, we're not tumbling inside because it's all relative, but the
Okay.
space station, instead of flying like an airplane around the planet, it's sort of just moving around at any attitude it wants to. And what's a little bit scary about that is you might lose communication because we're talking through a satellite back down to the Earth, and our antenna might get out of range of the satellites. And some of the things we have to worry about in space are fire. If we had a fire, if we had a depressurization, like we were hit by a micrometeorite and it made a hole, or if we had some type of toxic atmosphere. We use ammonia for our radiator, so there is a possibility that ammonia could come into the vehicle, and then it would be bad for all of us. If we have any of those problems, we come right here, which we call the central post. It is the main heart of the space station. It was also the first computers that came up here that ran the space station. And so behind this wall right here are these main computers. So we gather here as a group of 3 or 6 and then figure out how we're going to either fight the fire, patch the hole, or solve the toxic spill.
On a spacewalk, you're whirling above the Earth at more than 17,000 miles an hour. The only thing between you and the deadly vacuum of space is a padded suit, a hardened helmet, and an umbilical tether that you hope is really, really strong. When you look out the window, can you tell what you're looking at? Can you see continents, oceans?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know exactly what you're looking at?
For the most part, you get better and better at it. At first, you know, you sort of have to keep looking at world map, which is we have on the computers here to verify is that where we are. But you get better and better, and you can recognize, you can tell differences between one continent and another. South America is with the rainforest, it's very dark. Versus Africa, when you fly over the Sahara, of course, it's very light, sandy. The southern part is a little bit more dark. You know it's North America. It's obvious because we know North America just by living here so well. India is very obvious, of course. And Russia is huge, so you know portions of Russia. You know portions of Europe, of course. And then when you get to the East Coast there, you know Japan and where China is and stuff. So you can pick out stuff before long, and you can pick out stuff as small as bridges. So anything that has a contrast, you can pick out really well. Anything that has, in times when you have a lot of shadow, I was able to pick out even the Statue of Liberty, just because the sun was shining such that it had a very long shadow, and I could follow it back to where the shadow was. So there's little hints of ways to find things on the ground.
You get better and better.
You get better and better too.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to take you to one of the coolest places on the space station. It's like a glass-bottom boat. This is the cupola. It sticks down below the space station. It's one of those places you find yourself hanging out in all the time because all you want to do is look back at our planet. I think some questions I had were about what do you do in your free time? And you can't help but want to just come to the cupola and look outside as much as you can. And a lot of folks, I play this game with myself about where we're flying over the Earth. Try to come in here and just guess. After being here for a little while, you can sort of figure it out. You can tell different cloud types over different continents. You can tell different soil types over different continents. So let's see. And then, of course, there's a lot of ocean. So usually we're over the ocean at first glance. I will tell you in just a moment where we are. we go. So right now we are right over Africa. It's a little bit cloudy, as you can tell, but we're right over the continent of Africa.
When we return, Sunitha tells us what her favorite space cuisine is and how she gets her Z's. Astronaut Suni Williams explains her daily routine. Learn how she sleeps, eats, exercises, and spends her free time.
This is sort of like in your house where everybody meets in the morning. After you wash your face, brush your teeth, you want to find something for breakfast. And this is our kitchen. You might notice there's all sorts of foods here. It's like opening the refrigerator. You got all your different stuff that you want to have: drinks, meats, eggs, vegetables, cereals, bread, snacks, and that's a good place. That's where you find all the candy. Side dishes, and then some little power bars just in case. So we have all this type of food. Some of it is dehydrated, and so we have to hydrate it, fill it up with water. Some of it is already made, and then all we have to do is heat it up. So something like this, I'm pulling out barbecued beef brisket. Pretty yummy. People always ask about sleeping in space. Do you lie down? Are you in a bed? Not really, because it doesn't matter. You don't really have the sensation of lying down. You just sit in your sleeping bag. So here's one sleep station right here. I'm going in right now. You can follow me if you want. So I'm inside. It's sort of like a little phone booth, but it's pretty comfy. I've got a sleeping bag right here that we sleep in, so we don't have sort of like a little bit of a cover. We don't fly all over the place. But you know, you can sleep in any orientation. I have it sleeping, feeling like I'm standing up right now, but like you saw, I'm on the floor. But it doesn't matter if I turn over and I sleep upside down. I can't have it. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down, so it really doesn't matter.
The prospect of gazing down at Earth's blue marble, conducting cutting-edge extraterrestrial research, and perhaps even exploring new worlds holds irresistible allure. Yet only a handful of candidates ever land one of these coveted positions. And one of the lucky and accomplished few is Suni Williams. Suni, do you get to exercise in space, which I believe you do because you actually ran the Boston Marathon in space? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we have a bunch of exercise equipment up here, and it's sort of mandatory, not just if you want to do it. It's like, for the most part, people are exercising about 2 hours a day. An hour of aerobic and an hour of some type of resistive exercise, weightlifting type of thing. So yeah, I did run the Boston Marathon on my first flight on the treadmill vibration isolation system, essentially a fancy name for the treadmill that we had up here. Now we've replaced it with the T2. And part of the reason I ran that was, first of all, I had to get on it anyway, because we need it for both loading, because it pulls you down. You're in a harness connected to essentially bungees, which pull you down to the treadmill. And so every time you jump up, it pulls you back down. And so that provides loading for your bones and your muscles and your hips and your feet as you're striking the plate as you're running, as well as aerobic fitness. And so we need to exercise. Also, your muscles are going to go away. You don't have to, we don't recognize that on Earth as you walk around, you're using a bunch of muscles and your heart is even being exercised. So we need to exercise up here to keep all your muscles in good health, including your heart, so that when you return, you'll be okay. And one of the things we also do is we exercise. We have some exercise equipment on board the space station. We need to do that because we lose bone density and muscle mass while we're up here, and that's a result of not having to fight against gravity. So how we keep ourselves in shape are with a bike, a treadmill, and a weightlifting machine. This is the bike. You notice the clip pedals. So all you need to do is actually clip your feet in, and then you can start pedaling. You don't need a seat. because you don't sit down. Actually, I haven't sat down for 6 months now, so you don't need any type of seat. Just make sure you're held in with your pedals. You probably see that the bike bounces around a little bit. As I move it, it's not steady and held to the wall firmly. And the reason for that is the space station is pretty big. You saw that there's also solar arrays on the space station. If we start putting any forces into the space station, it's going to make those solar arrays bounce around a little bit. So to prevent that, the machines bounce around a little bit, move around a little bit, and that way we don't put any forces onto the structure of the spacecraft out to the solar arrays.
Tell us about connecting back with your roots in your trip to India.
Yeah, I was really lucky. After both of my flights, I've had the opportunity to go back to India. After my first flight, I flew into my father's home state of Gujarat, Ahmedabad, and it was a little overwhelming. And I'll just say that with a quick reflection of just coming back from space itself. After, if you can imagine living in this container with only, a crew of 3 or a crew of 6, and then seeing a whole lot of people, that's a little shocking in itself. And for me, after coming back from space, getting used to people, but then going to India and seeing all of those people, that was a little bit shocking. But I think the thing that hits home with me every time I think about is how warm and welcoming everybody was, how interested people are, from the little kids to, the grandmothers and grandfathers, just about the trip to space, the mission, the science that's involved, the personal feelings, all of the wonderful questions that I got while I was there, and the feeling of connection and the feeling of welcome. So it was really, both of the trips were great. The first one, of course, like I said, to my dad's home state of Gujarat initially, and then on my second trip, I got to finish with going to Gujarat, which was great because it was nice to end that trip with family and friends.
Astronauts are an elite group. Only a select few have experienced true zero gravity while orbiting the Earth in the inhospitable environment of space. Sunita reflects on her journey after the break. Give us a quick rundown of what it's like coming back to Earth, the process of re-entry.
Re-entry is different, just like launch for both the shuttle and the Soyuz. The shuttle comes back like an airplane. It slows down with its belly facing into what we call the velocity vector, so hitting all those little molecules of air as it's getting thicker and thicker and thicker coming into the atmosphere, and that's doing all the cooling, or dissipating all the heating, rather, from as you're entering into the atmosphere. And then, but eventually, it pushes over and flies like an airplane. It gets to the landing area, Kennedy Space Center or Edwards Air Force Base in California, with excess energy, which means it's higher than it has to be, so it can do a alignment circle to land on the runway, and then it lands like an airplane on the runway. We're sitting way up in the front, and they slow down by landing on the main gear, and then the nose sort of slaps down, and we feel that slap down, but that's really the most of the bumpiness of the ride.
Suni, you have set some amazing records as an astronaut, as a woman. What would you like to say to all our young viewers out there who are watching Shades of Shakti in the US and Canada, who aspire to have a career like yours?
Well, first and foremost, I say records are made to be broken. So I'm hoping there'll be many, many young girls or young boys or whoever will come out and break all the records that all of us have set in this time frame. That's what happened in the past. There had been people who had been the first people to space, and we've done amazing things since then. I mean, we've taken space travel, spacewalking, living in space to the next level, and I can only imagine what the next generation of explorers will get to do. I talked earlier about how I became an astronaut, which was not the most straight path. Some of the people in the office had a very straight path and had, their mindset when they were young kids that this is what I want to do, and they attained their goals. And I think that's awesome, but that's not everybody. It's probably only a small percentage of the people out there. So I would suggest to kids out there, try as many interesting things as possible. See what you like. When you like something, you're going to do it well. The third thing I would say is failure is okay if you can figure out why you failed and fix that the next time. Don't be afraid to fail. Take chances.
Where do you see the future of space exploration, and do you believe there's other life out there besides us?
I can't tell you.
I thought so, but I thought I'd ask anyway.
Well, I think we're on a really interesting time right now. I mean, we're, the first guys who went to space, of course, Yuri Gagarin, Alan Shepard, John Glenn, those guys sort of set the stage for the next group of all of us that are in space in low Earth orbit. They did it the first time. We've added so much to it. We've sort of perfected it. We are here. We're doing it. We're actually doing experiments up in space now to work on the next spacecraft that's going to go to the next farther place, be it maybe back to the moon, onto an asteroid, onto Mars. I think all those things are really possible because everything happens in a stepwise process, and we're just on that journey. And we've come so far in the last 2 decades in technology. How could you not think that we're going to take the next step? So I think the future of space travel is going to explode before too long, and the kids who are in junior high and high school right now, or elementary school for that matter, are going to have a lot of cool stuff to do in the future. I'm sort of jealous, but psyched for them.
Suni, thank you so much. I think your name, Suni, fits you perfectly. Bright, beautiful, and so inspiring.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure to talk to you, and we learned so much. I know our viewers are going to learn so much about space exploration and determination and courage from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Humans have dreamed about space flight since antiquity. The Chinese used rockets for ceremonial and military purposes centuries ago, but only in the latter half of the 20th century were rockets developed that were powerful enough to overcome the gravity and reach orbital velocities that could open space to human exploration. Space exploration and life out there in the great beyond have always captured the human imagination, but few people get to experience the thrill of liftoff, the view of Earth from above, and to float in a spacecraft. Suni Williams is one of those special and qualified individuals who has done so. We look up to Sunita for her courage, determination, and drive to explore the unknown. Our women of Shakti are showing everyone just how strong we have become through the years and how strong we can get. Keep your emails coming in at shadesofshakti@tvasiausa.com and visit our Facebook page for updates on our series. I'm Nisha Mathur, reminding you that it's time to celebrate. It's time to focus on your inner desires, build self-confidence, and create the life you want to live.